This week on the Analog Circle podcast, more Xbox exclusives are allegedly on their way to both PlayStation 5 and Switch 2. Grand Theft Auto 6 rumors are swirling around the destruction of buildings and you being able to go inside of multiple places. It is a very interesting breakdown. Rumors of the next Resident Evil Remake has been making its rounds allegedly, and it could possibly be an exclusive on a console that I don't think any of us would have seen coming. And PlayStation could be starting up another AAA studio. And it's one other thing. We do get the alleged specs on the Nintendo Switch 2. But all of these stories can be found here and more in episode 200 and what? I don't even know what episode we're on. But anyway, I am your host, Keon Mitchell, and welcome to the show. Welcome. It is always fantastic to be here with you guys. So come on in, sit down and relax. And if you are not at home, if you're not in the office and you're actually traveling, then hopefully we'll be able to accompany you to your destination. Now, with that being said, if you guys do want to be a part of listener feedback, and we do have an email this week, but if you want to participate, you can do it two different ways. You can either call in at 443-627-9087 and let your voice literally be heard, or you can email the show, and the email address is simply theanalogcirclepodcast@gmail.com. So with that being said, guys, before we get into the meat and potatoes of the show, I just wanted to go over just a few stories that I didn't necessarily write down all of the details pertaining to the story, but I found it kind of interesting. So more PlayStation Studios. I found this interesting. They could be using Guerrilla Games' Decima engine to develop their games. Now, no teams were actually mentioned outside of Sony Bend Studios, when I believe he was a senior game designer. I think his name was Matthew Seymour. Y'all know my doggone memory is terrible. I think his name was Matthew Seymour, but he talked about the unannounced game that they were working on was actually using the Decima engine. So we know that all of us want Days Gone 2. I know I sure do, especially after playing the first one. And I've been really enjoying it. I can only imagine if these guys know how to use that Decima engine. Of course, we know it's not going to be Days Gone 2, but whatever game they're working on, which I think is a multiplayer game or a gas game, the thing is that Decima engine sings. Goodness gracious, it sings amazingly well. And I will say it, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I have not seen a game that looks better than Horizon Forbidden West. This generation, I have not seen it yet. And I still haven't played Horizon Burning Shores, which is actually supposed to be better looking than the actual Forbidden West full game. So if you have, just imagine this. Imagine having somebody like Naughty Dog using the Decima engine on The Last of Us Part 3, or even the new game that's coming out, the Heretic Prophet or whatever, the sci-fi game that's coming out soon. Imagine what somebody like them will be able to do with that engine. It could be sensational. Could be amazing, but we'll see what happens with this. I am still curious to know what Sony Bend Studios actually comes up with. I don't know if they're going to stick with the gas games mantra, which it does seem like Sony is not giving up on that. They still feel like they still got some room, to make some things happen in that space. And as a matter of fact, talking about the Decima engine, they said that Sony, that is, believes that the Horizon Zero Dawn, well, I don't know if it's Horizon Zero Dawn, but the next Horizon game that's going to be a multiplayer game, they're talking about that they're expecting that it's going to attract at least 1 million players to that game. So it's going to be interesting. We know that the market is so saturated when it comes to these gas games, and it's a very hard uphill battle to get people to pry away from something like Call of Duty or Fortnite or whatever other gas games are super popular right now. They have like a lock and key on those games. So breaking into that space is a little difficult. Now, they did have some early success with Helldivers 2. That game has done very, very well for them. So because of that game, it's still giving them hope, making them feel like they still can have some life left in actually making a gas game and making it successful. So we'll see what happens with this nonetheless, with this Decima engine situation. I'm just imagining somebody like Sucker Punch, any of PlayStation Studios being able to use this engine and how much they could make it sing. But guys, the other thing I wanted to bring up, which I find very, very interesting and slightly concerning, I give this gentleman a little bit of a hard time, but like I've said in the past, this man is absolutely a legend in the gaming space. Nobody is quite like him. And I'm talking about Hideo Kojima. Hideo Kojima actually came out and he was talking about Death Stranding 2's crunch. He was saying it is I think the quote was I think he says something to the effect of it's incredibly tough, end of quote, to actually keep doing this, and he doesn't know how much longer he can remain creative in this space where it's so much pressure on your shoulders to pretty much produce. The stakes are high. There are 20s and 30s of 50s of millions of dollars at stake, where we know that one misstep could actually be the end of some companies. And we've seen it time and time again. It's a situation over there at Rocksteady, which at one point in time, I don't think any of us would have had any doubt that Rocksteady, as great as their track record has been with all of the Arkham Asylum, just the Arkham franchise in general. And I understand the third one, might not have been 100% well received, but that was an amazing game. That story was impeccable. As far as I'm concerned, I enjoyed it front to back. But to see a studio like that late last year actually have more layoffs because of Suicide Squad really bombing, tanking to another level that I don't think any of us saw happening, because again, I think they were going with the gas games kind of situation and not really staying true to what they're known for. And that's not any fault of their own. You got to blame the publisher for that. Them actually telling them, well, we need you to make this type of game. They're the ones funding the project, so whatever they say goes. So I would have thought that it would have never been a situation where we would be talking about Rocksteady having layoffs or having I guess as critics say, having a bomb, or a dud in Suicide Squad. I have the game. I haven't played it fully yet. I think I got like a half an hour in, and I was enjoying it. So we'll see what happens with that. But again, just getting back to Kojima, it's a high stakes game, and he's been in the gaming world for like 40 years at this point. He's been, going all the way back to the 8-bit era. So he's seen the pressures actually grow over the years where you had smaller budgets. But even those smaller budgets, when you think about what Naughty Dog was up against, they really weren't small shoestring budgets even for the time. So it's always been very expensive to make games, maybe not as much as today where the cost is just absolutely ballooned way out of control. But when you have that kind of pressure on your shoulders to perform, man, it it can't be so great for your mental and physical health. And we do know that Kojima did have a bit of a scare. I can't quite remember when, but he did have a scare not too long ago. So I'm just hoping that he'll be able to fight through this and get this done. He got multiple projects in the works. He got OD that he's working on as well. So we'll see what happens with this. Death Stranding 2 is supposed to be out later on this year. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about is, just speaking of the gas games for 1 minute, I believe Marvel Rivals, they said they're going to release a new character roughly every 45 days. So just thinking of it from that perspective, when you have a gas game where you have to make something new every 45 days, that is nuts. Just to keep the crowd or, the player base locked in that game. That's how much commitment it takes to actually keep one of these gas games going. And I can only imagine that when Naughty Dog said, look, they came to a crossroad and it was like, either we can go here or we can go there. And they're like, nah, we just going to stick with what we know, because if we don't, we'll never be able to get back to that point again of being able to make single player games. So yeah, every 45 days, Marvel Rivals will be having a new character, which is great. I think that's a fantastic thing for people that are interested in the game. It'll keep you locked in, as it were. But we shall see what happens with all of these things in the near future. But now, guys, I guess it is time to get into the meat and potatoes of the show and to get into what we all come here for. And that is no doubt the gaming news that went down. So I want to get things started with IGN and with a little bit of some big Xbox news. So it has been announced that on Thursday, January 23rd at 1 p.m. EST, Xbox will be having their annual developer direct. Microsoft said fans, quote, we'll get an inside look at a selection of highly anticipated games coming to Xbox Series X, S, PC, and Game Pass players this year. End of quote. Now, the list of games that will be shown is pretty stacked, I gotta say. And it includes South of Midnight, which is one of the games that I'm really looking forward to. Very much so looking forward to that. We got Claire Expedition 33. That's another banger. When I saw that at the Xbox show, it's an RPG. Man, oh man, those graphics, trust me, those graphics look absolutely stunning. So I'm looking forward to seeing them get into a deeper dive of that. But if it couldn't get better than South of Midnight and Expedition 33, they're also going to be showing off Doom, The Dark Ages, that game right there. Oh my gosh, I can't wait. I can't wait. Goodness gracious, they used that game. Oh man, they used that game to start off that summer showcase, and what a way to start it off. It was like once Doom, The Dark Ages was shown, it was at 100 miles an hour, 1,000 miles an hour, all the way through the show. I mean, I'm really, really looking forward to getting a deeper breakdown of these games, but that wasn't the only thing. Now, they will, quote, visit, and this is where it gets interesting, even more interesting. They will, quote, visit a surprise location to see another studio's brand new game, end of quote. Now, the thing is that people have been wondering, what could this brand new game be? Well, it seems like the speculation has been leaning in the direction of the Elder Scroll remastered version of Oblivion. But that, I think, who was it? Somebody came out, I think Jez Corden actually said that wasn't true. I mean, of course, we know that people get it wrong. Jez isn't the end all be all when it comes to gaming news. So it could be wrong. But I mean, nonetheless, this would be a dope announcement to have happen. I mean, but the thing is that, man, what could this mystery game be at this surprise location? I mean, could it be a game that Activision is possibly working on? We heard that this was a couple of years ago that they were supposed to be working on another game outside of Call of Duty. So could it be a situation where that's happening? Could it be another Spyro the Dragon that may be happening? I mean, we heard that for quite some time, you know, a while ago, maybe about a year and some change ago. We heard that a new Spyro was being worked on. I mean, this could go in so many directions. I mean, it's just very, very interesting. We'll have to wait and see, though. But the good thing is January 23rd is next week, so we won't have to wait too much longer. Let's go ahead, though, guys, and let's get into the next story. Oh, man, this was a very, very good story, actually. And I got it from Tweaktown. So we got to get into some rumors.
Rumor has it is something that only I know.
So we're getting another possible, and I want to really emphasize that possible, very exciting report that is now talking about the buildings and exploration throughout the game. And what game am I talking about? Well, of course, I'm talking about Grand Theft Auto 6. So it is being reported that allegedly, and I mean, I say that highly, allegedly, players will be able to explore inside of roughly 40% of the big buildings in the game. You'll be able to enter into 40% of the buildings in the game. Now, you'll also be able to enter all smaller shops in the game, and the buildings will also take physical levels of destruction. Now, let me repeat that again, because I don't think I said that too well. But you will also be able to enter all, that's right, they said all smaller shops in the game, and the buildings will take physical levels of destruction. Now, for instance, you'll be able to blow out windows and doors on anything that is enterable. But like I mentioned earlier, some smaller buildings like shops, pawn shops, gas stations, etc., are all enterable and are more destructible than big buildings. Now, for example, for that part, the smaller buildings will have reportedly walls crumble. The inside will be shot out. It can be burned down, and the roof of the building can be destroyed and bent, depending on the chaos level that is happening. So if you in there and you got a shootout happening, bullets are ricocheting off of the wall, glass is going to break, it's probably going to shoot through, you know, like drywall or whatever, bam, you'll get some bullet holes. But if you have a bazooka and you shoot maybe at the top of the roof of the building, that joker might come down on you. It just might come down on your head. So you might not want to do that. So the destruction just seems to be immense. But the thing that I do want to say is this alleged leaker, now he did say, just to kind of pull it back a little bit, he did say that the frame of the building will stand mostly. So basically to that point, it's not full blown destruction, but it's allegedly darn close. But just to make it clear, you know, the report from Tweaktown is saying, because I wasn't very specific on this part, the big buildings, they include, and these are like 40% of these buildings you'll be able to go into. They include big hotels, skyscrapers, banks, malls, etc. You kind of get it. And those will be destructible just on a smaller scale. Like I said, you'll be able to shoot out the windows, shoot down the doors, things of that nature. But if you're really trying to get that, and it's not quite full scale destruction, it's not Red Factions level, but if you're trying to get a little bit of that destruction of actually seeing the building semi crumble, you're going to have to do that with the smaller buildings. You know, like I said, the pawn shops, gas stations, Yeah, pawn shops, gas stations, and, just smaller buildings kind of on that scale to really get that destruction. But I'm just saying, man, Grand Theft Auto 6 continues, and these are all rumors, so we gotta leave it in the sphere of it could be true, but it definitely might not be true as well. But the things that we continue to hear about Grand Theft Auto 6 and the situations that you're gonna be in. I mean, one day when this game is released, before it releases, I'm gonna have to ask the question, once the game is out or once we get a lockdown date of it really coming out on a certain day in a certain year, I'm going to have to ask, is this game going to live up to the hype? And again, it's not a fault of Rockstar, because Rockstar is not coming out here. They're not parading the game saying all of these things. These are allegedly leakers or leakers in the know that are giving us this information. So with Rockstar being so tight-lipped and really not talking too much, really not giving us much of anything to go off of, it's been over a year since we've seen anything on Grand Theft Auto 6. I mean, not even new official screenshots have been shown. So with them having the pressure of a Grand Theft Auto not releasing in, good grief, well over 10 years, them not really giving a lot of information out officially, and we're only able to go off of so-called leakers and people that are allegedly in the know, and them telling us this stuff like the destruction, or the last week when we were talking about the cleanup crews actually coming out, and we'll see actual construction happening if you knock down if you knock down a light pole. The light pole is going to stay in the middle of the street. Traffic is going to back up and continue to back up until the crew actually gets out there and moves the pole and reconstructs it. Things like that. Hearing these kind of reports, it makes me wonder, will this game actually live up to the hype? Because no game is above the program. I understand Grand Theft Auto is a huge name, one of the biggest names in gaming, and it's been great for a very long time. But again, nobody is above reproach. So I have to wonder, once this game is officially released and people are actually playing it, I have to wonder, will it live up to the hype that this game has garnered over the last several years? So it'll definitely be a good conversation, when it does happen. Usually things like this might be the Grand Theft Auto that it might let us down from no fault of Rockstar's, but the expectations that we continue to hear about, again, not from Rockstar, but from third party so-called insiders and alleged leakers. I have to imagine that if a lot of this stuff isn't in the game, I think people may be a little let down. I think that this Grand Theft Auto has the most pressure on it than any other Grand Theft Auto ever. I really believe that because it's been so long since we've seen one. They're being very cagey about the details. We've seen leaks that have come out over the past, with the early gameplay. So they didn't look, and it's not going to look good because it was alpha gameplay. It wasn't, fully finished gameplay, but people got mad about that. So I think this Grand Theft Auto is under the most pressure out of all of them so far, but we'll see what happens with this. I remember in the trailer, they walked into a convenience store because remember, they were robbing the store. So being able to have that level of detail where you'll be able to go into a ton of buildings, 40% of big buildings, including skyscrapers, malls, office buildings, things of that nature. That is something we have never really been able to do in a game. Even if it is 40%, we know that Grand Theft Autos are usually huge. The maps are very big. So being able to do that and then be able to walk into any of the smaller stores, like a convenience store or a gas station store, it really brings a certain level of detail that we have not seen in gaming thus far. I would say the only other game that I've played where you can go into multiple buildings is Days Gone, which is kind of amazing in that way. That it's a lot of buildings. You'll be able to jump in through the window. You'll be able to walk up the stairs, walk down the stairs. It's a little different. It's a really good game, man. Just having that extra element of being able to hide inside of buildings and things of that nature. But to see what Rockstar is possibly doing, with the destruction as well of these buildings, it really, really gets me very, very excited. Well, even more excited than, not necessarily than what I've been. Cause my excitement level is at 1,000 right now for Grand Theft Auto 6, but it helps embellish, the excitement that I have for the game. So hopefully everything will come out like they're reporting, but we shall see. Let's go ahead though, guys, and let's get into the next story that I actually got from WCCF Tech. Hold on 1 second. All right. So just like clockwork, this seems to be the case almost every week we're getting these kind of reports, but rumors are swirling around that more Xbox exclusives are coming not only to PS5, but also Switch 2. Now, this rumor, or as some people call it, speculation, is coming from insider Nate Drake, who said both Halo Master Chief Collection and Flight Simulator will both be releasing this year for each of those consoles. Now, hold on. Now, God dog, now. Flight Simulator on a Switch 2? Nah. I don't think so. I don't think that's real. Nah, that don't sound real. Halo Master Chief Collection, yeah, I can see that. But Flight Simulator, heck no. That doggone game has been bringing PCs, super powerful PCs, darn near to its knees. Ain't no way a Flight Simulator is going to be on Switch 2. I call a little bit of cap on that one, but let me continue. He said, now, hold on, let me see. So, yeah, I don't know, man. Ain't even really no need to even go that far into it. So, all right. So they're saying Halo Master Chief. I can see that coming. There was also a report that said E-Day, Gears of War. Well, not E-Day, pardon me. Gears of War Remastered and Senua's Saga are also coming, sometime this year. Actually, that's what I've heard. Senua's Sacrifice and, Senua's Saga, the second one, Hellblade 2, is coming both to the PlayStation 5. Hold on now. I don't know about the Switch on Senua's because I darn well know that ain't running on no Switch 2. I don't see that happening, but they are saying that it's reportedly going to be on PlayStation 5. So, we'll see. This isn't new, as it were. This isn't new news. Phil Spencer has already come out and said more games are coming. I just truly think he's killing his brand. He continues to kill his brand. Having a Gears of War over on PlayStation. God, dog, man. It's got to be some gaming crimes right here. Some gaming war crimes going on. You're going to put your flagship titles, Halo and Gears of War, on your competition, the game that built Xbox. You're putting that on PlayStation? This is painful, man. Again, I'm not shocked, but dag, man, even Sega, people want to talk about Sega and, their games actually going over to Nintendo. That definitely did happen. But when Sega was in the console business, you never saw Sonic over on a Nintendo GameCube. They were out of the console race before they started making those kind of moves. And it just seems like Xbox These jokers don't give a doggone. And I mean, it kind of makes sense to a certain degree because this was something I didn't write down, but talking about Xbox, Satya Nadella, it was reported that he was about to shut down the Xbox, the Xbox brand back in 2021, but then he had decided to pick up Activision and it kind of saved it. So 3 years ago, he was about to do that. And they got this lofty goal of getting to 100 million. And this isn't new news, but they're talking about getting to 100 million by 2030. Oh, man, that ain't happening. That ain't happening, Captain. 100 million. I think they're 33 right now, 33 million as it stands. Man, you got to be kidding me. But that was what was going to happen. So with Satya Nadella having that in his mind and seeing how bad the Series X and S have been performing, it's not surprising that this is happening, but it is saddening to me as a Xbox fan or a former Xbox fan. It is sad to me to see the brand just going through these ups and downs. More so, I'm not going to say it's more so downs because this developer direct that's coming up, man, this thing sounds like it's going to be fire. I mean, it sounds like it's going to be amazing. And I'm looking forward to it. But it would just feel so much better if we all knew that the games are going to be exclusive to the Xbox brand so Xbox could continue to be out here really competing with everybody else. But, I mean, we'll see what happens with Gears of War, Halo, and Senua's Saga in the near future, and Flight Simulator. Doggone Flight Simulator on a Nintendo Switch 2. I don't know, Nate Drake. I don't know about that one, brother. I don't think that's possible, but we'll see, man. We'll see. But what I want to do now is I want to get into an email from my good brother, Crimson Phoenix. Let me pull this up, man. You know, I got a lot of love for brother Crimson Phoenix. Now, the title of his email is Last Time. He says, I'm not excited. And now this must have been the question. He's referring, just a little bit of context. He's referring to the question that I was asking last week, which was, would you buy a new Xbox? Now he says, this is his response. He says, I'm not excited about the next Xbox. I'm excited about the games. I'm glad you will also get to play the games without owning one. Here's some feedback. In my opinion, your questions are loaded and seem meant to trigger a negative response. I no longer wish to stay in that frame of mind. So that will no longer be the reason why I listen to your podcast. Oh man. Now hold on, Crimson Phoenix, my good brother Crimson. Let me say this really, really quickly. The questions are never made to trigger a negative response. I'm really not doing it to trigger that. What I'm simply trying to do is really get people's perspective, their point of view. You guys know my point of view. I say darn Xbox right now. Darn them. They don't make me feel appreciated. They don't make me feel loved. They make me feel like doggone stepchild out here, giving out all my toys to everybody else instead of taking care of home first. That's how I feel about Crimson Phoenix. They make me feel terrible as a customer. But when I go over to PlayStation, oh man, they whining and dining me. They making me feel like, golly, we really appreciate your support. We gonna keep your games over here. Now granted, the games, they might slip on off over the PC for a little bit, a little while later. And God dog, I'm gonna tell you, Crimson, that window keep getting shorter and shorter. First it was 3 years, then it was 2 years, now it's a year. Dog, day and date seems like inevitable. It's gonna happen eventually, but I will say at least PlayStation isn't out there putting their games on Xbox, putting their games on Nintendo. They make me feel valued as a customer, my brother. So, again, that's why I'm asking the question, because sometimes, hey, Crimson Phoenix, you know me, brother, I be tripping sometimes, and sometimes I need somebody to be a little bit of an anchor in the gaming space and say, wait a minute, Keon, hold on, brother. You're wilding out right now. How about looking at it from this perspective? So again, Crimson, it is never to make it so it'll trigger a negative response. That's never the case, my brother. I just truly want to get where you're coming from with the question and what your outlook on the question is. But let me finish up with your email here, brother. He says there are many reasons to buy and not buy any of the systems, and I'm going to stay where it's more consumer friendly and in the ecosystem where my friends and family are. And he put in parentheses, if that ends up being anything other than Xbox, so be it, into parentheses. Now see that, now see exactly. That's the point right there, Crimson. You actually gave a reason as to why you stay with the Xbox brand. It's not necessarily the games. It's actually, as you said, I want to use your words. It's a more consumer friendly ecosystem, and it has your friends and your family in that ecosystem. And that's enough of a reason for you to stay with the Xbox brand. I fully understand that. And those are the things I'm talking about, Crimson, where I throw the question out there. I truly want to get the feedback on where everybody's mind is and where their perspective is. So that makes sense to me. And for me, Crimson, man, brother, you know I ain't online, man. I ain't playing no online games. I'm getting washed and everything. It could be Call of Duty. It could be Fortnite. The only game I might give somebody some fight in, and no pun intended, is Fight Night. That's about the only game that I will give anybody some competition in. But outside of that, I'm getting murked on every single level. So I stay away from the online gaming space. So having friends over in the ecosystem, it doesn't really do anything for me because I'm never going to game with anybody in the ecosystem. It's all about the games, my brother. You know, the single player games for me, that is, my brother. But let me continue though with your email. He says, that's all that needs to be said as I'm now ascended. Oh, this brother say he has ascended through the clouds. Hold on. Oh man, Crimson, you something else, brother. Brother said, let me read that again. He said, that's all that needs to be said as I'm now ascended from the nameless war and no longer want to war about it. It's about the games. A rule from your book. God, dog. This brother always know how to switch, reverse the gun on me. God darn it, Crimson. God, dog. This brother always use my words against me. Oh, man. He says, darn it. He ends the email by saying, stay safe. Best regards, Crimson Phoenix. Man, brother, let me tell you something. Crimson, I know, and maybe I read it wrong, but it seems like you're no longer going to be listening to the podcast because of the questions that I ask, and it brings a negative response. Brother, I'm going to tell you something, man. I hope, brother, that maybe after a couple of weeks, couple months, maybe you'll decide to come back, because Crimson, it's things like this, these kind of emails, brother, that I would truly, truly miss. I would hate to see you not listen to the show. I truly enjoy the interactions that we have with one another. I enjoy the banter. So, Crimson Phoenix, just always know, my good brother, that the door is always open here at the Analog Circle Podcast. And if you decide to come on back in the door, we would be happy, very happy. I would be extremely happy to see you come back. But shout out to you, good brother, and I wish you the best, nothing but the best. And I hope that one day, maybe, you'll see it in your heart to come back. Salute to you, my brother. So with that being said, guys, let's go ahead and let's get into the next story. Now, this next story, I actually got it from The Verge. So Ubisoft has decided to once again delay Assassin's Creed Shadows from February 14th to March 20th. Of 2025. Now that's just roughly a little over a month and 6 days, somewhere around there. So really not too egregious. But Ubisoft said this, and I quote, "This additional time will allow the team to better incorporate the player feedback gathered over the past 3 months and help create the best conditions for launch by continuing to engage closely with the increasingly positive Assassin's Creed." Man, wait a minute. Ho. Hey, Ubisoft, did you have the nerve to say the increasingly positive Assassin's Creed community?
Boo this man!
Oh, dang, man, these jokers was up in arms a couple of months ago. Oh, my gracious. I don't know about that, but you know what? This is the corporate speak. These jokers said the positive Assassin's Creed community. Man, listen, we understand, Ubisoft, that you got to sell copies of this game. So in order for you to do that, y'all said, look, we're going to just have to, make some changes, listen to the community. We're going to add some additional things in that the community wants us to do, which is good. That's good to do, but I also think that sometimes when you listen to a community too much, it might, I don't know, man. It's like, Ubisoft, y'all have a certain standard, with the Assassin's Creed games. We know that they're not like fully based on real events. I mean, through and through, everything is always a little twisted here, bent this way to make this narrative happen. So when you kind of get into the weeds of, how would you say, the accuracy of, what happened during that time period, I mean, it could kind of take away the formula that you have. So I hope that they're listening to some of the feedback from the community. Hopefully they'll be able to have the game come out, not lose its identity, I guess, to a certain degree. But nonetheless, for anybody that was wondering, it's going to be delayed until March 20th. I'm still picking this game up. I'm looking forward to it, and I can't wait to play it. It still looks really good. I think it's going to be a really good game. I know it pressures on them. Doggone Tencent is down their throat right now. The thing I heard was with, what's his name? Yusuf Medding. I forget his name. He's the CEO over at Ubisoft, but he's talking about them and Tencent possibly doing another venture together. So it's looking very shaky on what's going to happen with them and Tencent possibly doing a hostile takeover. I don't know yet how that's going to turn out, but we'll just have to see and wait. But again, Assassin's Creed will be coming out on March 20th, 2025. Let's go ahead though, guys, and let's get into the next. Well, you know what? Hold on. Before I actually get into the next story, I wanted to tell y'all something. I had played over the weekend, man, by the way, shout out to the Ravens for taking care of Pittsburgh. God, dog, if you saw the game, you saw the game. And Lamar Jackson, for the first time, really looked settled in into the playoffs. He looked like himself. So we had like a nice amount of people over on Saturday to watch the game. And after the game was over, I have Undisputed. So everybody, not everybody, but my cousin more so was like, man, what's up with that boxing game? Let's run that joint. Let's run the Undisputed. Now, I had never played Undisputed. It was in the wrapper. Shout out to the wife for buying that for me. Shout out to her. Shout out to her. Man, it was awesome. So I take it out of the wrapper, and it's me, it's my cousin, my brother's there. A lot of my cousins are there. Just family all around. We throw on Undisputed. Man, let me tell you something, brothers. Let me tell you something, brothers. As a person who is the biggest Fight Night fan, more so Fight Night Champion. Oh, Fight Night Champion is a classic. God, dog. And it holds up unbelievably well to this day. I will say this. Hold on, give me 1 second. I will say this. Undisputed is not, it's not a fight night. It's not fight night. Doesn't have the presentation, doesn't have the story mode, the campaign mode. Has a good roster of boxers, however, though. It's not they did a darn good job on the roster because they made this game. Now, this is the interesting thing about it. They made Undisputed for less than $20 million. Steel City made this game in 2024 for under $20 million. And off of that alone, that's during their shoestring budget. I mean, they got Deontay Wilder in there. They got Tyson Fury, even though he just retired. Shout out to him. They got Usyk in there. They got Clarissa Shields. Who else? Sugar Ray Robinson, Sugar Ray Leonard, Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier. I mean, Joe Lewis. They got a great roster. Rocky Marciano is in there. It's a great roster of boxers. But when it comes to that gameplay, which is the most important, man, that Joker ain't bad. That Joker is not bad. I got up in there, man, throwing them body shots, throwing the jabs out there, throwing the hooks, combinations. The thing is, the game it's not as fluid. Now, I don't know if this was done on purpose to really simulate actual boxing because it's more methodical than Fight Night. It's a lot more slower paced than Fight Night. Fight Night, man, you would put them combinations together. Boom, 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 boom. No problem. In Undisputed, it's more so like boom, 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 boom. You know, I guess it's a little slower paced, but that gameplay was good, man. I enjoyed it. I mean, it was good to me. And maybe this is because I've been starved. Not just me, but we have been starved of a new boxing game for so long that I was just so happy to play something new with an updated roster of fighters inside of the game. So maybe that could have played a bit of a part into it. But I'll say the narration was decent. It was solid. The locations, I'm not too sure about the locations. We weren't really fighting at the MGM Grand or anything like that. And I'm not saying that those venues aren't in there. We were just mainly fighting in a boxing gym or in a prize fighter club, with a club atmosphere where you got the tables around. So we weren't really at like Madison Square, anything like that. But those, like I said again, those venues could be in there. But from what I played, man, it was fun. We had a blast. I mean, we were going back and forth. Shout out to the young brother Jason, who was whipping all of us in the game. Doggone, that Joker gave me some real deal work. That brother was real good, man. So we locked horns with each other and had a great boxing match with each other. It was a ton of fun. Shout out to my cousin Kenyon for buying, him and my Aunt Barbara. They bought me a new controller. He bought me Madden 25. It was a blast, man. It was so much fun. Just having them, and the family over to play Undisputed. But I would recommend, if you're a boxing fan, I don't think you're going to be too let down. It's a learning curve. It's not quite Fight Night. It's maybe Fight Night, probably like 1.25. It's not quite, it ain't no 2.0. I tell you that much. The damage, the other thing, Fight Night has so much of a better damage system. Undisputed, when you get cut, it does show the cuts and the lacerations on your face. Your eyes do swell shut. but Fight Night just does it just so well. So what I'm hoping is with Steel City Interactive, that first time out the gate, this is a dub. This is a W. And they did it on less than a $20 million budget. I really believe that if you gave them a bigger budget, maybe double the budget that they had, they would be able to do double the output of what they did this time out. And I think that game, the next game, if they do get another crack at it, that next game is going to be something to look out for. I think they could really be a good competitor when it comes to Fight Night, but we will see. But anyway, guys, let's go ahead. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Let's go ahead though, guys, and let's get into the next story that I actually got from Insider Gaming. So it looks like Sony, man, yet again, could be putting together a new studio in LA. Oh man. Shout out, man, may God be with you guys over in California. Good grief. Especially in the LA area. Man, those fires are terrible. God dog. But let me continue with the story. God dog, kind of threw myself off. But yeah, so they're making a new studio. They're putting together a new studio in LA with Jason Blundell being the head of the studio. Now, this became a story when a job listing was discovered on a PlayStation site, and users on Reset Era shared it. Now, the job listing says this, and I quote, "We are a newly established AAA studio based in Los Angeles, driven by a team of seasoned industry leaders and experienced game developers. Our mission is to create the next groundbreaking AAA original IP while reimagining the development process with a lean and highly efficient approach. We're seeking talented individuals who share our vision and are eager to join us on this journey." End of quote. Now, the way Jason Blundell, or Blundell, spelled Blundell, because I mentioned him a little earlier, but the way he got caught up in this story is because he was the founder of Deviation Games, but we all know that studio got shut down before they even could ship a single game. And it was stated that Deviation employees would be funneled into a new studio. So because of that, they're thinking, well, the thought process is this is the new studio that those ex-Deviation employees are actually at today. So with Sony actually starting another AAA, or at least allegedly another AAA studio, this says to me that they are going to continue to keep their foot on the gas. And I love it. I absolutely love it. AAA development is always fantastic. And I understand that it was an actual article that I actually saw today that actually mentioned that AAA development is way too expensive, and to a certain degree, and we've heard this before in the past. So this is nothing new. This is retreaded tires at this point, but said that it's unstable and it's not a good long-term plan. I just think that what's going to happen, and they kind of mentioned it with this listing, that they're looking for a highly efficient approach and seeking those people that are very talented and, you know, basically that have experience, you know, a lot of experience in the AAA space. And I think that what they're going to start doing in the industry, and this isn't shocking, this isn't something that you guys already don't know, but I think what's going to happen is AAA teams are just going to start shrinking down more and more. I mean, we're to the point now where there's some guys out there that are highly talented that are a one-man army that can make games by themselves, where they don't need a ton of a budget or, you know, a whole bunch of people to help them to actually make a game. We are at that point today. So when you get a smaller team, a more concentrated team who everybody has a ton of experience on AAA games, you'll be able to do more with less. And we see that with the tools today. Unreal Engine 5. Again, I always got to shout out my brother Cody. I know he doesn't like that engine. And a lot of people are, they're a little iffy on it. But with tools like that, the Unity engine, things of that sort, it's making it easier and easier for a smaller amount of people to actually make an amazing product. Always go back to the Ascent. The Ascent, I believe that game was made. Let me see. I don't want to lie, but it was a very small team that made the Ascent. And if you played that game was amazing. Hold on. Let's see how many people worked on it. How many people worked on the video game, The Ascent? Says the video game, The Ascent, was developed by a team of 12 to 16 people at Neon Giant. The team size fluctuated throughout the game's development. So there it is, 12 to 16 people made an amazing showpiece like The Ascent. So yeah, it's getting to that point where you're really able to do a lot more with less. So I think that's the direction that this team will be going in, that PlayStation will continue to go in, so that they can, I said it before, but continue to give us these AAA experiences, because that's what I love. AA experiences are good too. The Ascent, that's a AA game. Cuphead, AA. But look at, that's the thing. Look at the level of amazing AA games that we have with something like they said, 12 to 16 people working on The Ascent. These are the results that we're getting today. So I truly believe that AAA development will be okay. It's just going to get a little bit more lean. And, it's just going to need more people that have a lot more talent and a lot more experience in the gaming space to continue to keep it going. But we'll see what happens with this. I'm really looking forward to seeing what game they actually come up with. What that game will be, I don't know. But, we will see in the near future. Might be a little while, though, because, again, it is supposed to be based in L.A. And, again, we know what's going on there. So this might be delayed by a bit. But we'll see. We'll keep our eyes and our ears open to this story. But let's go ahead, though, guys, and let's get into the next story that I actually got from Comic Book. Now, it's being said that the next Resident Evil remake will be Resident Evil 0. And this is being reported on by Resident Evil insider Dusk Golem. Yeah, this guy reports on a lot of stuff, but when it comes to Resident Evil. But Dusk Golem is the guy that's behind this new report. Now, he's also saying that the game will release in March of this year. Man, I don't know. March of this year, that would be wild. And it will be available. Now, this was the part that really got me interested. It's going to be available on the Switch 2 when it releases. Now, to his credit, just to kind of bring it in a little bit. To his credit, he does say this is, quote, educated speculation, end of quote. So it could happen. It might not happen. Resident Evil 0, I mean, I guess it would make sense with all of the remakes that have been made. You got Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, Resident Evil 4. It would make sense that Resident Evil 0 would be the next game, just to keep it going in a certain order, the order, of Resident Evil games, even though Resident Evil 0 came out after the original Resident Evil. But that was one I never played. I know it was on GameCube back in the day. I never gave it a shot. I think I had kind of grown out of Resident Evil by that time. But this will be interesting to see what happens with it if it is the actual remake of Resident Evil 0. I would buy it. I mean, I got Resident Evil 4, I got Resident Evil 2 remakes. Didn't get 3 though. But we'll see what happens with this in the near future. Now, the thing I do want to read off though, because we just mentioned the Switch. Hold on. We did mention the Switch 2. We actually got some specs, alleged specs, on the Switch 2 earlier today. So here it is. These are the specs that have allegedly been leaked. So, and shout out to D-Batch because he's the source I actually got this from on Twitter. He says Switch2 specs have leaked. NGL docked mode a bit weaker than Series S, but it has DLSS. Very interesting spec. So I'm gonna tell y'all, I'm not a huge spec guy. I know some basics. So some of y'all might be able to break this down a little bit more than me, but feel welcome to do so by either calling the show or emailing the show. So here it is. So the technical specifications. So the CPU is an ARM Cortex-A78C, which is 8 cores. It's unknown L1/L2/L3 cache, sizes. So that's the CPU. The GPU is a NVIDIA T39 Ampere RTX 20 series. Man, that don't sound too powerful, a 20 series. That might be all right. I don't know about that. But it says 1 graphics processing cluster, 12 streaming multiprocessors, 1,534 CUDA cores, 6 texture processing clusters, 48 Gen 3 tensor cores, 2 RTX ray tracing cores. Oh, very interesting. Now, as far as the RAM, it's going to have 12 gigabytes of LP DDR5, and it says in parentheses, some/all units will have LP DDR5X chips, and it's going to have 2 6 gigabyte chips. Now, as far as the power profile, now this is in handheld mode. It's going to have a CPU at 1,100.8 megahertz. The GPU is going to be 561 megahertz with 1.72 teraflops peak. The RAM is going to be 2,133 megahertz, 68.26 gigabytes of peak bandwidth. Now, when it's docked, this is interesting. Some of these numbers actually go up and others go down. So the CPU actually goes in dock mode. It goes to 998.4 megahertz, which is a bit of a drop from the handheld mode of 1,100.8 megahertz. The GPU is 1,007.3 megahertz, 3.09 teraflops peak. And the RAM is 32. Well, that's a pretty big increase. In dock mode, it goes to 3,200 megahertz, 102.40 gigabytes, whereas in handheld mode, it's actually at 2,133 megahertz at 68.26 gigabytes. God dog, it's a big difference. So we'll see what happens with this. Matter of fact, speaking of the Switch 2, it is a report that's saying that it's supposed to be a show tomorrow. January 16th is supposed to be the reveal of the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, I don't know how much I believe that. Matter of fact, before we go any further, I don't see anything. I'm looking at the news right now. Nothing is appearing to show that there is going to be a show tomorrow, and it is 9:30 at night when I'm recording this. So it doesn't seem like it's going to happen, but anything is possible. We'll see what happens. Nonetheless, we know that the Switch 2's reveal will be happening sometime this year, by March, I believe, of this year, bare minimum. But we'll see what happens with this. We'll see what happens with this Resident Evil remake, Resident Evil 0 remake as well. But let's go ahead, guys, and let's get into the next story that I actually got from Game Rant. Now, Insomniac Games has just posted a job listing. Now, the listing reads, this senior researcher would be responsible for, quote, leading the research process for a AAA title and will be required to work at Insomniac Games Burbank UX Lab over a 3-month period to help with the project that is already in early production. So could this be the next Spider-Man? Or could it possibly be the next Ratchet and Clank? Because the Insomniac leak did say the next Ratchet and Clank would release in 2029. So that's roughly 4 years from now, which timeline-wise would be right in line with the PlayStation 6. Now, I mean, of course, we don't know that for sure, but I guess only time, will tell. We'll see in time. But also, we had heard, not heard, but read some of those leaks from Insomniac when they unfortunately got breached. But we had saw something where it was supposed to be a standalone Venom game. We never heard any more word about that. Maybe it could be something on the lines of that, because they did say that it's quote, already in early production, end of quote. So, I mean, that could go a couple of places. That could go to Spider-Man 3. It could go to, like I said, the next Ratchet and Clank, which I just got to say, if y'all haven't played Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, god darn, man, that game is so phenomenal. It's criminally underrated. I mean, it should be a game in crime. How bad that game sold, but how great it was. The game was phenomenal. I got to see how many copies it sold. How many copies did Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart sell?
Here's information from Video Game Sales Wiki. Fandom.
It looks like, it didn't do too bad. It sold almost 4 million copies. That's of June 2023. Oh, well, that ain't too bad. That ain't bad. That's much better than I thought. I thought it sold like 1.5 million, like 2 million copies. Just like Astrobot. That's another game that's incredible and should have way more numbers than what it does. But I digress. But we'll see what happens if this is a new Spider-Man, if it is a new Ratchet and Clank, or if it is that rumored and leaked game, that Venom game. So kind of like on the lines of a Miles Morales, I guess. Because when I'm gonna tell y'all this might go into a little bit of spoiler territory. It's gonna go into some spoiler territory. So I'm going to give you a warning. If you haven't played Spider-Man 2 all the way through, then fast forward about a minute from this point. All right, here we go in 3. Spoiler incoming in 3, 2, 1. Here we go. When you play Spider-Man 2 and you actually take over as Venom and you see his powers, oh my gosh, the destruction level is insanity. It's insane. So I can only imagine if they made a full-fledged, even if some people want to joke around and say, DLC, I don't give a darn what y'all talking about. If they mess around and they make a Venom game and he's actually able to do the things that he does in Spider-Man 2, oh my gosh, it would be incredible. It would be outrageous. Just the things and the destructibility that you would be able to see. But I will see what happens with that. Anyway, I'm getting long-winded with this. Let's go ahead, though, guys, and let's get into the final story of this week that I actually got from Gag at Git. It's spelled Gagadget. Gag at Git. Now, for people, darn, that's a heck of a name, man. But for people excited about, oh, shucks. All right, let me get myself together. All right, here we go. Now, for people excited about the action RPG named Phantom Blade Zero, a gameplay trailer will be shown on January 21st. Now, this is being developed by Chinese studio S-Game, and S-Game said this. They said they will, they will show, quote, bold innovations and deep immersions in creating an unrivaled melee experience, end of quote. So for any of you guys that aren't familiar with Phantom Blade Zero, it's kind of like on the lines of Black Myth Wukong, when it came to actually seeing it for the first time, it was a jaw dropper. It was like, oh, shucks. This game looks darn incredible. So for anybody, again, that has been following this game and are interested in it, remember, January 21st, it will be real gameplay being shown off on this game. Matter of fact, January 21st, hold on, does that collide with whatchamacallit? Nah, that's January 23rd. Okay, I was about to say, even though it's not a PlayStation exclusive, I was about to say, man, Sony might be on their bull job again. But nah, it's not on the same day as the developer direct that Xbox is having, because we know that PlayStation can be very, very, very petty when it comes to that. But anyway, that is the end of the gaming news this week, which actually leads us into the final section of the podcast. And I know you guys saw the question that I, asked you guys at the beginning. And like I always say, thank you guys for being here. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. But let's go over the question. So like I said, tomorrow, allegedly, the Switch 2 is supposed to be shown. Now, if that does happen, the question I would have for you guys, and it's not to say we're going to get a price reveal allegedly tomorrow, which I don't believe is going to happen. But if it does happen, my question to you guys would be, how much will you pay for a Switch 2? Now, the rumor has always been it's going to be between $400 and $500. Well, a newer rumor just came out today that's saying it's going to be at $400. So with those specs that I just read off a couple of minutes ago, some of you guys that are way more technical than myself, maybe you can assess that and you can really come up with a dollar value of how much you will be willing to pay for something like that with those specs. But that's what I would like to know. How much would you pay for, a Switch 2? We know that Nintendo, I will say this, and I say this confidently, the Nintendo Switch 2 was the greatest. That was the greatest console that Nintendo has made, in my opinion, since the Super Nintendo. Nothing ever reached the heights that Nintendo made like the Super Nintendo. Because the Nintendo, yeah, you can say that reached a lot of high heights. That's very true. But it's like that second effort when they came out with Super Mario World. They had Final Fight, Battletoads, Super Battletoads being on the Super Nintendo, Out of This World on the Super Nintendo. I mean, even though it was on the Genesis, but Flashback being on the Super Nintendo, it was just a moment. It was a moment. Wait a minute. I don't know if Flashback was on the Super Nintendo. I think it was, but I don't know. Dolphin Software, one of the greatest for the time being, at that time being. But, yeah, so, I mean, they have done amazingly well with the Switch. I'm hoping that they'll be able to replicate that success. I mean, this Switch has been amazing. It's not Super Metroid, but the new Metroid game, Luigi's Mansion 3, Super Mario Odyssey, the Legend of Zelda games, they really just kept the hits coming. Now, I'm not going to sit up here and act like I was sold on all of their games. I absolutely was not. But they did make me a fan of Kirby, though. That Kirby game was a ton of fun. Still got to play through it. Hold on. Give me 1 second. But anyway, with that being said, I'm being long-winded at this point. How much would you pay for a Switch 2? Me, I would actually pay the $400. I mean, that the purchase of the Switch, man, and shout out to almost said that brother name, but he knows who he is, who actually got me to open up the Switch, because I wasn't going to do it. But yeah, shout out to him. It ended up being way past my expectations of what I was expecting for me to how much I was expecting to like it. So shout out to him for that. But I would pay $400. I think I would. I don't think I would have a problem with that, especially with it being better graphics and allegedly being able to run games of today on the console. I think that would be pretty cool. and you'll be able to play those games in handheld mode. Oh, shucks. You might have to just sign me up for that. And I'm not the biggest handheld guy. I'm not going to sit up here and act like, man, I'm rooting for handhelds. I absolutely am not. I can't really stand them. But I will say that when I played the Switch, that joke actually felt pretty good for a handheld. It's something that I could see myself playing with in handheld mode, even though, to be honest with you, I don't take my Switch to work. It ain't never on the truck with me. It would be a great time to do it, but I'm afraid that I might mess up the screen, so I just keep it at home. Plus, I'm really a console gamer at heart, so, But I'm curious to know your thoughts. If you would like to chime in on this, on how much you would be willing to pay for the Nintendo Switch 2, you can do it two different ways. You can either call in at 443-627-9087 and let your voice be heard, or you can email the show, and the email address is simply theanalogcirclepodcast@gmail.com. Guys, again, hold on one last time. Pardon me. Guys, I just truly want to thank y'all for being here. I know I sound terrible. Man, I'm sick. Oh man, my throat is on fire right now. My eyes hurt. All kind of stuff. Oh man. But I just want to thank y'all for being here, though. I truly, truly appreciate y'all for being here. And I just, again, I said it 10 times already, but I just want to thank y'all. Thank y'all so much. Thanks for getting through this episode with me. Oh, man. So, before we wrap it up officially and put that bow on it, and shout out to my brother Crips in Phoenix, like he said, always remember one thing. It is not about the consoles. It is about the games. So until next Wednesday, when we do it again, until then, you guys take care. Be safe out there. Bye-bye.